It's Cageside with John Morgan.
And welcome everybody back to another episode of Cageside with John Morgan. I'm your host, Eric McMahon. We will quickly recap UFC Fight Night from the Apex Center this past weekend. I don't think any controversy really there, but some birdies do chirp. So we'll get into it really quick. But what we're really looking forward to and what we're looking ahead to is the UFC pay-per-view live from T-Mobile Arena this Saturday night. Ankalaev, Pereira for the undisputed title this Saturday. I'm jazzed for this fight for many reasons, but to help break it down, let me bring in the man. His name is on the marquee. You can follow him on X, John Morgan _MMA. What's up, John?
Man, we get fired up to a different level when it's a pay-per-view fight week, and that's what we got here. And then obviously it's right here in Las Vegas, so it's in my backyard, the fight capital of the world. I obviously love to have big fights here in Las Vegas. And so, yes, as you said, we'll definitely talk about what happened at the Apex. I don't want to disrespect anybody there because there were some solid performances that should be mentioned, but you start putting UFC titles on the line in Las Vegas, and you know where our attention and our excitement level is going to be.
Yeah, man, I'm jacked to see it. Cat out of bag. I'm gonna be out there. I'm not working, but I will be out there for this pay-per-view. So I'm really, really excited to just see the legend that is Alex Pereira in person and up close. And
come on, just the walk-in. You get to experience that in person.
100%. That's what I'm so jacked for, But with that being said, there was a fight card at the Apex. You want to quickly go through it for us? You were there. You were in attendance.
Well, actually, last second I had to make an adjustment. I didn't because I was in town. I was here, but I was dealing with some other things. So I watched it on television and said, hey, well, I'll wait to be in person at the T-Mobile Arena next week. 10-fight card. So, I was like, if there's a week to miss, it's probably this one. But I was impressed, man. Manel Kape, Magomed great performance by Manel Kape. I mean, this is a flyweight on the rise. I've been a fan of this guy since he first came in. He's had some inconsistency. He had some difficulties when he first came in, but he seems to be hitting all strides right now. All the gears are clicking.
The speed that dude operates in and the frenetic pace and being able to stay composed in chaos that he's imposing is crazy.
It really is, and he was a cut above Magomed. Who Magomed, by the way, not a bad fighter by any stretch. I mean, a really challenging athlete that stepped in here. Was supposed to be the Brandon Royval fight. Manel Kape dealt with everything well. As you said, not really any controversy. It was kind of a tough situation. I felt kind of bad for Mike Beltran in this situation because the finishing sequence that Manel Kape used, it started with a bit of a kind of a swipe to the eye that replay showed, I think really was a bit of an eye poke and probably could have been stopped. But unfortunately, just prior to that, Magomed had kind of called timeout on what happened to be a punch. He felt like an eye poke, and I don't blame him for doing that. You don't know the difference, right? It feels like an eye poke, but it turns out on replay that the fist was closed and it was a legal punch. I think Mike Beltran was kind of put in a tough situation where, A, you can attest how hard it is even to see those eye pokes to begin with, but B, it's just right after you had said that you had been poked in the eye and the replays instantly showed that you hadn't. So it was tough. So a little bit of a difficult situation for Mike Beltran there, but I'll just be honest with you. To me, it didn't change the flow of the fight. It just all the exchanges are relatively one-sided. Manel Kape was dominating. So because of that, I think it was just the result was going to be a little bit inevitable, if I'm being honest with you.
I'm going to take up for Beltran here because I saw the clips. I'm going to go out and say I didn't see the fight, but I saw the punch, the knuckle go into the eye. The reaction a lot of times garners the referee's decision to stop it, maybe not seeing it every time. And so he stopped it. Mark Smith running replay. Nope, we got to get him started. That was a legal blow, which he did. Everybody did the right thing there. You restart it. I want to go back to, what was it last week? We were talking about where is the actual rule infraction, right?
Right.
Now, obviously, if a finger can't go in the eye, that's a rule infraction of it in and of its own. But 90% of the time, it's the byproduct of the prior rule being infracted, which is the fingers going straight to your face.
Love the way you explain that. Love the way you explain that.
Let me ask you a question. On the eye swipe, did the fingers go straight to the face? Was there the indicator that there was a foul?
Not really.
Did they go that way?
No.
or did they come this way?
Yeah, it was like they were extended at the end of a punch, basically.
So essentially what Manel Kape was doing is there's a very well technique. It's like you kind of swat the hand down. It was almost like a parry / I'm going to swipe the defense down and come straight behind it with a right hand. That's what happened. So for Beltran to be able to see, hey, this was an eye poke and the eyes were coming straight to his face, you didn't get that. Now you may have got a swipe in the eye, which is still technically not allowed, but it's followed immediately. There was no reset. There was no bouncing around. There was no saying, my eye is hurt, my eye is hurt, then a punch coming. So the only remedy that you have is go back and look through it and say, hey, this has got to go to the cards, or this is a no contest, or it just plays out the way it played out, and it played out the way it played out. I don't see Beltran doing anything. He didn't make any glaring mistake there.
Yeah, I don't either, to be honest with you. So I thought it was just a great finish from Manel Kape. Like I said, maybe an unfortunate byproduct, but it's fighting, man. Things happen in there, right? It's going to happen a little bit. But a great first by Manel Kape. And look, he's saying, look, I know it's supposed to face Royval, but I was here, he wasn't. I think I still deserve the title shot next. Really interesting, in the post-fight show, they actually got Alexander Pantoja on a video call as well and kind of talking with Manel Kape. So thought that was interesting. It's not, I don't always watch the post show if I'm there, but since I was watching from home, I did that. I don't recall them, always bringing the champion on to talk about a potential matchup when somebody that could be a number one contender calls it out. So that to me says if they're getting Pantoja on the phone, that maybe that is the matchup that the UFC is thinking about next. And Pantoja certainly seemed to be open to it. It's pretty cool because it was all respect between the two. It wasn't trash talk, but they were both like, I love it. Pantoja was like, dude, I'm a fan. You got skills. I love what you did tonight. I'd love to go in there and test myself against you. So we'll see if that fight comes together next. So that was the main event. A little bit of controversy in the co-main event has been a discussion point as well. I don't know if you got to see this clip or not, but Mark Smith was refereeing against Cody Brundage and Julian Marquez, and they actually both lost their mouthpiece in a pretty short sequence of time. So neither one of them has their mouthpiece. It's kind of late in round one, and they're throwing down and going at it and, having shots in the pocket. Mark Smith has both mouthpieces in his hands, and he finds a brief break. And I mean, it's a very brief break, but that's what you're waiting. You're waiting for a neutral spot, right? He calls time, puts the mouthpieces back in, they restart, and right on the restart, Cody Brundage tags Julian Marquez, and it ends up being kind of the start of the end. Marquez doesn't recover. Brundage continues striking. TKO finish right there. So I think there was some discussion there, like, hey, should you have stopped it? Should you have not? I had some people texting me that were asking, what'd you think about that? And I do, again, it's a situation where I think it's unfortunate that it happened right on the restart because, as you sure can attest to, no referee wants to be seen as the reason the fight went one way or the other. But I don't know that he was necessarily wrong here. He did find a brief break in the action. It was a neutral moment. It wasn't a very long neutral moment, but it was a neutral moment. And the other thing that stood out to me was it was both fighters. If one fighter still has his mouthpiece in and you stop the action to replace it, and that guy complains and says, man, why did you stop it? Like, I was flowing. I was in the middle of a combination. It's not my fault. He lost his mouthpiece. I would see the complaint. But I don't know. Since they both lost the mouthpiece, I just kind of felt less offended by the stop and the restart because it was like, hey, you both lost your mouthpiece. So sorry, we had to replace that and get those in there for the end.
So there's a couple little weird things at play here, right? So, and there's a ways that referees handle these different. You can also already say, stop, time, pick up the mouthpiece, let the opponents place them in their own mouths. Or you could just be like, stop, mouthpiece, go, fight.
Right.
And that way you're almost not even calling a timeout. It's just a stopping the action, take it, go. Like, I'm not screwing with anything.
Right.
I think, one, there's no right or wrong answer to which way you're going to do it. So falling something on anything coming on Mark Smith is absurd, which I don't really think there's anything coming on Mark Smith over there. It's just the way you do it. And if you do call a timeout, then you do have to break. Then you should say break, reset, right? To a degree. If you don't, and it's just a boom, boom, which it sounds like it was like mouthpiece. All right, let's keep going. Then they stay where they kind of are. So it's really just a way mechanically in which way you're going to do it. Because at the end of the day, I would almost more often than not in that situation do it the way Mark Smith did it, because it was hot and heavy. It was a slobber knocker. They were fighting within a phone booth. They were both willing to engage all the time. So there is no reason to separate them. It's like, hey, let's not waste any time. You guys obviously want to get after it. Mouthpiece, okay, mouthpieces are in. Let's keep going. So it's almost not even a timeout.
Yep. That's kind of the way I felt about it as well. Obviously, anytime a referee is involved in something, people are just going to speculate and question and discuss it. And that's fair. I mean, we're evaluating the athletes. Let's evaluate the referees as well. But I didn't have anything egregious there either. And I know how committed Mark Smith is as an official and how great of a job he does. So no concerns there for me. So, just kind of unfortunate happened around the restart. Other than that, listen, man, it was, not only 10 fights a night. There's some fun ones. Nasrat Haqparast and Esteban Ribovic. If you didn't catch this one, it's worth going back on ESPN Plus or Fight Pass and watching this one. Great fight. Haider Emil had a really good fight with William Gomes. Haider Emil looks like somebody that, is going to be fun. But I had to mention Memphis' own Danny Barlow, right? Suffering his first loss. I hated to see it. Obviously, man, Danny Barlow, ties to the Memphis area, of course, came through CFFC as well. I'm always cheering for guys that make their way through the CFFC. Came up against a tough Sam Patterson. And Sam Patterson, I don't think most people saw the fight going this way. Not that Danny Barlow was a significant favorite according to the odds makers, but I think most people thought if Patterson is going to win this, he's going to take it to the ground and win it there. But instead, he was able to catch Danny Barlow on the feet, get it done. So was bummed, man. You could see the frustration, the disappointment on Danny Barlow's face. He's not used to losing. I mean, he's a phenomenal athlete. He's been a high-level competitor, everything he's ever done. He hasn't had to taste defeat. I hated to see it for him. But it's the reality of the sport, right? I mean, unless your name is Khabib Nurmagomedov, you lose fights along the way somewhere, and it's how you respond and how you rebound from that. Do you learn the lessons from it? The old cliche, the win or learn. You know what I mean? Do you learn? Are there lessons you take out of it? Do you find a way to build off that and improve from it? And so, I hope Barlow and his team can go back and find the lessons and just get better, because we've all seen it firsthand, you and I especially. Danny Barlow is an A++ athlete with a lot of potential. Losses just happen, especially at the UFC level, man. So hated to see it for him, but, hope it just fortifies him even more and solidifies that drive.
Yeah, I'm not looking to break down this fight, but at all. But from watching it and being as intimately ingrained into his career, just because I've reffed him a number of times, both on the AMI scene and the pro scene.
Yeah.
This is the first time I've ever seen some guy taller than him. He is a massive 170. And you had a guy that was bigger than him, longer reach, right? So I think those were some problems that he just wasn't used to as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man, there's challenges that you're going to face that you haven't seen before. So, like I said, unfortunate. I was cheering for Danny Barlow there, no question about it. So, but the guy's got bright days ahead. There's no doubt about it. You like to see how people respond from losses and how they can, do they make the improvements necessary? And hopefully, you just go back to the drawing board. You don't get frustrated. You don't get down on yourself. You know what I mean? But you just go, okay, let's take a real good look at what happened. What went wrong? How do we fix that? How do we make sure that this particular situation never happens to us again? So we'll be looking to see what he does next time out for sure.
Let's look ahead. UFC 313 this Saturday from the T-Mobile Arena, Las Vegas, Nevada. Ankalaev versus Pereira. And have you seen the lines on this fight?
I mean, I know they're close, right? Is it basically like a pick 'em at this point?
They're both minus money. You don't get odds on either one of these guys. Minus 105 for Ankalaev and minus 115 for Pereira, according to the UFC site. Now, it could maybe different on DraftKings and your best fight odds, but from the UFC, which I'm not exactly sure what betting service they're taking it off of, but it's both minus money, which is kind of echoing what a lot of people have been saying for a long time about what it can look like when Ankalaev finally gets his title shot.
I think this is accurate, man. I really do. I think that Magomed Ankalaev is maybe perhaps a little bit unheralded, because he's not a big talker. He's not out there, a big marketing machine, that sort of thing. And because, of course, the rise of Alex Pereira, the stardom is unbelievable. I mean, this dude is a super. And when you consider he hasn't even been fighting in the UFC that long, the level of stardom that he has is unbelievable. But this is a legitimate challenge. I mean, if you're writing this off, whether it be because you're an Alex Pereira fan or whether it be, you're just an MMA fan and you're like, what is this title fight? This is one-sided. Why'd they even put this together? I wholeheartedly disagree, man. I think this is a stiff challenge for the champ, and I think there's a real potential for Ankalaev to walk away with the title on Saturday night.
I do as well. I don't know. Like, a lot of times we can walk in into levels of a degree. You know, I've been wrong a lot lately, but usually we've done pretty good job on this show breaking down fights from a tactical standpoint. If A, then B, this is what you need to do to try and get to A so you can get B, and things of that nature. This fight is obvious. It's obvious to me what needs to happen. Ankalaev needs to get the distance closed sooner rather than later. He can't stand at that longer range, but he is no chump on the feet either. This dude is a stud everywhere, right? So this really comes down, in my opinion, this really comes down to, can Alex Pereira clip him coming in, or can he take his legs out from him very early? Because if he can't, this could be a very long night for Alex Pereira.
I agree, man. First of all, I think immediately against Pereira, you look at an athlete and you say, hey, man, they probably want to grapple, right? I mean, but, Ankalaev can. That's not really how he fights. You know what I mean? He's not, even though he's got the Russian background and the name, he must be a big wrestler. He's got some grappling. He started out in Sambo. He does, but he's not like a big shoot from range double leg kind of guy. He's more of a, if you get into a clinch and there's a scramble, maybe he can toss you down, and he's got a pretty mean top game and great that. But I don't know that this is, and most people, if they're fighting Pereira, I would say, hey, let's start with our grappling. Let's start there. Let's talk about how we're going to get this done with our grappling. I don't think that's Ankalaev's approach to this at all. And that's what I think is going to make this fun. I think you're 100% right about the distance and about the timing and the speed. I think Ankalaev, does have the necessary speed. He's not the quickest guy at light heavyweight, but he's not slow and plodding either. Ankalaev has got his own leg kicks as well, right? I mean, he'll chop at the legs a little bit, so that could be key. It's going to be who lands first. And so I'm kind of expecting this to be, and maybe, I'm not expecting this to be the highest volume output ever in a fight. Mm-hmm. But I think every exchange that these two guys have is going to be tense because they both have knockout power. Yeah. And I think you're gonna hear a whole lot of whoa, oh, you know what I mean? Some narrow misses and maybe some wobbles here and there. So I'm expecting tension in this, man. I'm excited for this fight.
I'm actually just quickly trying to look up. If you see me looking away, I'm trying to look at how tall is he? Do you have it in front of you?
Yeah, Ankalaev. So Ankalaev is 6'3", and Pereira is 6'4". So I mean, there's not going to be a visible size difference. Now the reach difference, which you touched on, Pereira just has that wild reach. He's got a 79-inch reach versus 75 for Ankalaev. So that points exactly to what you were saying, is that Ankalaev has got to close the distance, because if he stays too far out at range, and then and Pereira also has like the leaping attacks and things like that, right, where he can get you from further away than you can get him. I don't think of Ankalaev as a big flying knee guy or something like that, or a big spinning back fist guy. I think he's a little bit more meat and potatoes, but the vicious basics that he's got there in tight, he's definitely got power.
Yeah, and let's not make a mistake. I mean, he averages one takedown, not even one takedown a fight.
Right.
In a 15-minute fight, right? Nah. So you see the Russian flag behind him, and you're like, oh, grappler. But not, I mean, he's got it, but not necessarily. I mean, he's got massive power, right? He's clean, he's smart, he's composed. But like I said, there's a difference between fighting all the way out and all the way in. I think his path to victory is fighting all the way in and getting all the way in. I think that Pereira can make a few mistakes and still win this fight. I think it's going to be very hard for Ankalaev to make a few mistakes and win the fight. So, that if we're going to stay at that range, knowing that there's a 4-inch difference, I'm not even necessarily worried about the punches, because that patented left hook isn't going to come from fully at range. But you know what is going to come at you from that range? Those calf kicks.
Yeah.
And those calf kicks are brutal. And then that's just going to be able to zap. So this first 2 rounds are going to tell the entire story for me.
100%. You're going to know. So, look, I think the build up to this, there's not going to be a lot of talking in it. You know what I mean? You're going to watch the press conference. You're going to watch the media day. There's not going to be a lot of talking. We know that, Poatan, Alex Pereira is not much of a talker anyway. Ankalaev isn't either. There is no English. It's going to be Russian translated to English, translated to Portuguese back. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's going to be tough for him. So it's not going to be that kind of fight week. But I do think when they come together at the press conference and they have their face off, I think people may be surprised because Ankalaev is solid. And, it's going to be like two guys that can throw it. And they're both really – Ankalaev is funny because he gets kind of jovial. Like when he does interviews and stuff, he's always got kind of a smile and a laugh. I don't know what he's saying because he's saying it in Russian, but he's always kind of having a good time. But when it comes time to get serious, I mean, he is intense as it gets. And then we all know Pereira at this point, it's legendary, the stare downs that he has. So I think you're going to see him at the face-offs on Thursday, and it's going to feel electric. And then you're going to see him at the face-offs on Friday at the ceremonial weigh-ins, and it's going to feel electric. And then they're going to stand in the cage on Saturday night, and it's going to be tense. But I like what you're saying. I think at the end of that opening 5 minutes for sure, and definitely at the end of 10, you're going to have a really good feel of how this thing is going to go. But I just don't think enough people maybe are giving Ankalaev a chance here. He lands less strikes on average than Pereira does, but he also absorbs less strikes than Pereira does on average. Ankalaev doesn't do a phenomenal job of checking leg kicks, which I would highly recommend doing against Pereira. But he also does a really good job of delivering those calf kicks and chopping the legs as well. So it's not like he's just taking your shots and not giving any back to you. So they're matched up very well, man. I really think this is going to be an intriguing fight.
I was going back and if you see me keep on looking away, I was trying to find his last loss, and his only loss. He's 21-1. The draw was to Jan Blachowicz. I knew that. Right. But his loss is all the way back to Paul Craig, and that was in 2018.
And if you remember, that fight, if you remember, was one of the cornerstones of the legend of Paul Craig, right? Because Ankalaev was beating the brakes off of it. There was 1 second left in the third round. There was 1 second left on the clock when Craig got that triangle choke, but he was on his 9
of round 3. Yeah.
Yes. But he was on his way to getting like 30-25 at that point. You know what I mean? Like
I don't remember the fight.
Ankalaev was just beating him from pillar to post, man. And it got this Hail Mary triangle at the end. And that was when you go, oh my God, Paul Craig just does not quit. He's a monster. So yeah, that's his only loss. I mean, not his only loss in the UFC. Like that's his only loss. And he was 1 second away from being a big win.
Alex Pereira is not going to be throwing up a triangle from his back.
Absolutely will not. 100% will not be doing it. So I'm telling you, man, I think it's maybe the marketing thing or whatever, but I just don't feel like people the odds makers have shown it respect. I don't know that the fan base has shown it respect that it needs to be, but overlook Ankalaev at your own peril, man. I know, at least I hope. I don't think Alex Pereira and his team would be that silly to be overlooking or to think this is, in the bank. I think they're going to offer him the respect that he deserves. This could be a very, very entertaining fight.
Well, and I think that you don't see this pattern with Ankalaev of he's just murking dudes in the first round, right? That's the kind of the litmus test for a lot of people that are going to get the excitement going. And he's like, oh, well, he's, conventional wisdom is going to say that most of the betting public and most of the general fans out there, we know that Alex Pereira can do that. But Ankalaev can get us into this rhythmic pattern of a fight, right? And then he has massive power, right? I mean, we saw it now. Johnny Walker is definitely on the kind of the back slope of his UFC run here. I think we can safely say that. And so to run back that first fight and then he starches him in the next one. But looking at his record, it's like he wins by UD, knockout, UD, knockout, decision, knockout. I mean, you see the pattern that we're running with here. And so that's why the fanfare isn't behind him. But what all this is saying to me is if he's standing there, he's patient, he's smart, he can pick his spots. He's not going to put himself in danger that he doesn't need to put himself in there for ego or for being whatever it is. But I can see the knockouts on his record. Don't tell me he doesn't have the power. Here is where the benefit lies for him. I can show you many times through many fights of where Alex Pereira is willing to put himself in danger to land strikes. Yep. This is a guy you can't do that with.
Yes.
You can get away with doing that. Even when I saw Khalil Roundtree, that is the reason I thought Khalil Roundtree for me was going to have a very good chance at winning that fight, because I knew the explosiveness and I knew that that Pereira was willing to put himself in danger. This is another level of big dude talking about Ankalaev to Khalil Roundtree Jr. I don't know if you can get away with taking the shots that Alex Pereira, the shots that he took from Khalil Roundtree. Can you take those shots from Ankalaev?
I don't think so. And I think you nailed it as to why, like, I don't know that this will necessarily be the highest output fight, because that's what Ankalaev does, right? He doesn't take unnecessary chances. If you rush him and you get wild and you get crazy, then yeah, he'll react to that and he'll respond to that and he'll swing back and he might land something. If not, he's going to be patient. He's not going to be, busted out of his game plan or broken out of that rhythm that he likes to set. And he just likes to be meticulous about things and do things his way. And so I think, again, I don't necessarily know that this is going to be barn burner fight of the year type. Oh my God, did you see that exchange? And now, it's Max Holloway and Justin Gaethje out there. I don't know that it's going to be that, but I do think that it's going to be rife with tension in everything they do. And both these men have knockout power. And I know the crowd's going to be electric. As I said, I've been fortunate enough to experience these Alex Pereira walk-ins. I'm glad that you're going to get to see it in person, because it is amazing the type of energy that he has. And I'm looking forward to it, man. But I listen, I think if you're saying, hey, John, man, I need a pick from you, it's hard to pick against Pereira right now, right? Because he does seem to have like that little bit of extra. It's that black magic that he brings. Yuri Prochazka called it out. He's got the dark arts on his side. But there is just something. When you're the champion and you got that swagger about you and you've got the experience in these insane level matchups, you think about the spotlight that he's been under since he came into the UFC and all those matchups with Israel Adesanya. So, he's been in these. And it's not that, Ankalaev has fought for a title. It was in Las Vegas. So, all of those things are going to feel routine for him. And it's not going to be out. But there's something different about it. So, if you're saying make a pick, John, I guess I say I pick Pereira, because to me, honestly, is a coin flip fight. It is to me. It is who lands first, because they both have the ability to get this thing done. But if you're saying you can't say that, John, you can't go 50-50, you can't say it's a coin flip, then I say, all right, well, give me a little bit of those championship level intangibles to lean towards the side of Alex Pereira. But I will not be shocked in the least if Magomed Ankalaev walks out of there with the belt around his waist.
And I will not either. And I'm going to tell you, the first couple minutes is going to be a big tell. Who's walking who down?
Yes, agreed.
Right? Because it's going to be hard to really get off those leg kicks the way you need to get off of it if Ankalaev is walking him down. And we do know that Alex Pereira can and will expose himself at some point. It's just whether, Ankalaev can capitalize on it and to what damage it will cause. He exposed himself against Izzy. We got a little too wild and chaotic, and Izzy caught him. Izzy put him down. Izzy put him to sleep, right?
Yep.
We haven't seen that chaoticness even when somebody got hurt out of him since that Izzy fight. But at the same time, it's going to be a lot harder to get these leg kicks off moving backwards.
Mm-hmm.
So if Ankalaev can get that forward pressure going, albeit either at a safe close distance or at a safe far distance, if he can get him moving backwards, that's going to pay huge dividends. What we can't do is have this face-off right in the middle of the cage. Because if we have this face-off right in the middle of the cage where we're both if Ankalaev is unwilling to walk him down or unwilling to be walked down, and they just are both sitting in the center of the cage, that's not a good recipe for Ankalaev, because those legs are going to be toast, especially that calf, and that nerve is going to be toast by the end of the first round. It's just the way it is. So it's anxious to see in these first 2 minutes what is going to happen.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. That's the one thing, especially if you're pulling for the Ankalaev side, that really does concern me is, against Rakic, I was a little bit worried for him there. Rakic was chopping up his legs. You know what I mean? And Rakic is a capable fighter, but Pereira is totally different when he comes back. So I don't think you can go in there and be like, hey, we'll just plant hard on that lead leg, and I'm not worried about it. You know what I mean? We know we're going to have to take some shots there, but we'll walk through it. Like, I don't know. So that does concern me, because Alex Pereira can absolutely tear up his leg early. And I think that'll definitely be a key weapon early. And that'll be one of the early tells as well, like you said, right? Who's walking who down and how successful is that leg kick early on? Because if he's having success with it early, it's going to be problems.
That's why I usually can come out and say, I'm leaning this way or I'm leaning that way. I am not leaning any way until I see the first couple minutes of this fight. It's just the way. I understand the intangibles definitely swing to Alex Pereira. And that's what you were saying. You're not leaning either way, but you're saying he has more intangibles.
Yep.
Right? But you were also dealing with this stoic Russian dude who just doesn't look like any moment he's too high or he's too low. He's just stoic, which a lot of those Eastern Europeans, they just have that mentality about being stoicness, and no moment is too big for them.
Absolutely not. He's just
too small, you know?
No, and he's been fighting at a high level of competition his entire life. You know, it's like sambo and amateur level. And I mean, just he's been doing this his whole life, man. He's been doing this. He's been building to this moment. He's got a chip on his shoulder. You know, had a shot at the title, and it was a weird situation the way it panned out with the the draw, with Jan Blachowicz and the draw and all that, and nobody walking away with the belt and it staying empty. So I think he's a little angry, and I just, man, there's a lot of storylines in this, man. So I'm really fired up for this one.
Well, I think it was literally hours after we got done recording last week saying that this is by far the people's main event of Hooker versus Gaethje. And if you just want violence, you need to watch this fight. It's two guys who are not going to stop. Well, Dan Hooker's out. I'm sure everybody knows this by now. Broken hand.
Yep.
Actually, I think he underwent surgery. I think he's undergoing surgery today.
Yep.
As a matter of fact. Well, one of Justin Gaethje's, in my opinion, fight that could go into get him into a hall of fame. He's got so many that I don't think the Rafael Fiziev fight will get him in the fight wing because he's had so many, but it could. They rebooked this fight, which from a violent straight out the gates, maybe a more violent fight than Dan Hooker. What we know about Dan Hooker is he will always be there and then start imposing late and just relentlessness. I know that Rafael Fiziev can do that to Justin Gaethje immediately. I saw it.
Yeah. 100%.
I watched it play out, and it was a violent fight.
Great fight between these two. Was not on my cards as a rematch I thought was going to be put together. It didn't seem to be one. This one kind of materialized out of thin air. But it's a great fight. If you haven't seen the first fight, definitely prep yourself by going back and watching the first one because it was an incredible fight. And, these two guys, I don't think are going to change a whole lot about who they are between those two fights because what we saw in that fight is just who they are, man. That's who they are. They're incredible fighters, and the way their styles match up is going to be a lot of fun. So, this was not a letdown by any stretch. If we're a late replacement to scramble and put something together, this was not. And by the way, I'm just crossed my mind before I forget. Like literally, when Justin Gaethje retires, like obviously he's going in the UFC Hall of Fame. They could literally just like rename the fight wing as like the Justin Gaethje fight wing of the Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? This dude.
Listen, we all know that the Clay Guida Diego Sanchez fight was an amazing fight.
Amazing.
And well deserving of being in the Hall.
Yep.
I think I can look back to Justin Gaethje and Fiziev and saying as good, if not better. But Gaethje has had so many of those damn fights that fight probably won't be considered, probably because it's not his greatest war.
That's so true. Isn't that crazy to think about?
Nonetheless, and it is worthy of it.
That's so crazy to think about. It's like, that is definitely a Hall of Fame worthy fight, and it's probably like your sixth best performance or something. You know what I mean? It's crazy. The dude is just all action. So I'm glad the UFC could save this fight.
The shots that Fiziev was taking, and Fiziev was winning that fight early on, only for the tails to be turned and the working within the clinch and the uppercuts and these massive shots that both these guys were taking, and they were meeting like two bulls just in the center of the cage. But it wasn't like a chaotic throwing. It was just brutality at its highest form of hand-to-hand combat. We get to see that again this Saturday.
I love it. We get to see it up close as well, man. So, listen. So here's one. This one I was proud because look, we've seen it. So I mean, we've seen the styles. And again, I don't think these athletes are going to change who they are. I think they're pretty, set in their ways in a good way. I mean, they have fan friendly, exciting styles. This is going to be another car crash. This is going to be fantastic. I was a little surprised at the odds here. Did you see it in the odds in this one that Fiziev is a slight favorite in here? And I
oh, no. He's a plus 130 dog I got here.
Not what I'm looking at. Are you sure about that? Where they got that?
I got this is on the UFC site. You know, they put the odds. They got Justin Gaethje minus 155, Rafael Fiziev plus 130.
Interesting, because I'm looking. I see that now at UFC.com. I'm looking at BestFightOdds.com and DraftKings, Caesars, Bet Rivers, FanDuel, Betway. All these houses that they have listed there all have Fiziev as a slight favorite over Gaethje, a minus 140 favorite to a plus 120 around that, all a little bit, around that kind of mark. And I'm a little bit surprised at that because, when you think about lines, I mean, obviously we understand with wagering lines, it's not necessarily exactly
there's no exact science. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not a prediction. They're trying to get two-way action on it basically. Right. So, but I mean, we've seen the fight happen before and it was a phenomenal fight. And it was a fight that Fiziev was winning early on and then Gaethje was able to close late. And then we think about the history of the fights. And then we always, when we look at lines, sometimes we think about the emotion in the lines as well, right? Like fan favorites are going to get money on them just because like people are like, I want to put my money with, that's my fighter. I'm throwing my money on my guy. And Gaethje fits that bill, right? I don't know if there's a more fan favorite fighter in the world than Justin Gaethje. So because of that, I'm a little bit surprised, and I'm assuming this is accurate. I mean, I see what you're saying.
Well, I'm looking at what am I looking at right now? I'm looking at one of them. I think it's DraftKings has Gaethje at a plus 120, Fiziev at minus 154.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm seeing on UFC.com, which I believe to be inaccurate now, given what we're seeing. That is kind of what I thought it would be, is Gaethje as a slight favorite, given the fact that he won the first time around, given the fact that Fiziev has been out, given the fact that Fiziev is stepping in on short notice. All those things, I thought we'd see Gaethje as a little favorite. So, man, I guess the odds makers truly respecting Fiziev, but man, if you could sprinkle some money on Justin Gaethje, if you could give me Justin Gaethje as an underdog, I don't even think I asked who the opponent is. And now if you tell me, hey, Justin Gaethje's an underdog against a dude that's definitely going to stand and strike with him.
Why do you think that is though? If we're looking at this, I mean, we have we don't even need to take MMA math into the equation. We have a head-to-head comparison. We saw Justin Gaethje take here's where I'm going with it. Why do you think it is? We saw him take everything. I'm going to give you my opinion really quick.
Listen, I'm a little bit surprised. I mean, I guess, they're saying indicative of what we saw early on. And then we've got Justin Gaethje coming off a knockout loss to Max Holloway. Maybe they feel the chin is something, it's not in the same state that it was. We just saw him get flatlined. Now, granted, that was almost a year ago. So he's taken a lot of time out from that. But that's all I can think. That's all I can think is that odds makers are saying, we just saw Gaethje get flatlined by a quote-unquote featherweight in Max Holloway, right? So a fight that all of us going into it were like scared for Max Holloway and hated the matchup, and then he gets flatlined. So that's the only thing that I can think where they say, hey, we did see Fiziev have success early on because we did. He won the opening round and he looked good early. But it's still odd to me. It's still odd to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll look at it and saying that Justin Gaethje, in my opinion, with the long layoff and everything, I take that Max Holloway. It's a weird dynamic if we can add that into this equation because he had taken a ton of damage up to that punch. It wasn't like we're just saying he has a weak chin because he got knocked out. That was at the culmination of 5 rounds of he took a ton of damage. That Holloway's speed was a little bit too much for him. Holloway shattered his nose in the first round on I'm not going to say it was a freak because he did practice it, but it wasn't the highest percentage, let's say, shot. Right. So I'm not questioning Justin Gaethje's chin, but they obviously are. We saw that he got hit a lot in the Max Holloway fight. Right? We saw that he got hit a lot in this prior fight. Now, granted, it's only 3 rounds. So is he going to get hit enough over the first 2 rounds to maybe bank those for Fiziev? That's the way I'm looking at this.
It has to be that. And It's funny because Fiziev's the younger man. I think there's about a 5-year age difference between the two. Is Justin Gaethje, are the miles starting to finally catch up to Justin Gaethje? It has to at some point, the way he fights. I mean, Justin Gaethje said it from the beginning, right? He's like, dude, I can't fight this way forever. I know the fans want to see it and I'm down for it, but because of that, I'm kind of limited in how many times I can go out there and do this, and do odds makers and perhaps the betting public at this point feel that, yeah, man, you've played that card a few too many times and now you have reached that limit. So, man, it does give me pause because, like I said, when I initially saw that, I was a little bit shocked by it. The more we kind of talk through it, maybe I understand it more, but man, it's just hard. It's hard to pick against Justin Gaethje in a slugfest, in a fight that is going to be who can bite down on their mouthpiece, who can survive. I mean, these guys have both. You look at the roster of athletes that these two guys have faced. I mean, they have both been fighting the absolute best of the best. But you got Fiziev coming in on short notice. It's been a long layoff. He had I believe it was an ACL tear that kept him out for a while, and then even after he's cleared, it took a little while. So he's got to travel halfway around the world on short notice. I'm interested. I'd still probably lean towards the Gaethje side a little bit, but I do. Fiziev is going to make this fun. It's going to be a hell of a fight.
I started talking myself into understanding the odds when I was like, well, this is the only way they're looking at it. And I'm like,
I know. It's maybe. I was experiencing the same thing. I'm like, wait a minute. It's maybe they're right. Maybe they're
right. In a 3-round fight, you need to get a round in 2/3.
Yeah.
In reality, because Justin Gaethje came on real hard, real late.
Yes.
In that first fight. Right.
Yep.
Which got him the win. So interesting. I want to touch base with one more fight on this card before we kind of wrap it up. And he's opening the main card, and we're talking about Mauricio Ruffy.
Ooh.
Okay. Go back to what our conversation. Do you recall our conversation after his Dana White Contender Series? I refed it.
100%.
Refresh everybody's memory.
You being in there in the cage and seeing the man up close and personal, you were more than impressed by his physical skills and abilities, and you were like, hey, remember this name. This dude is going to be a problem in this division in very short order. And I would say that prediction has been absolutely right thus far.
And I'm willing to say his Dana White Contender Series, it was I forgot the guy's name, but he was an Eagle MMA. It was one of Khabib's dudes. Right?
Yep. It was. Oh yeah, it was Raymond Magomed Ankalaev. It was Raymond.
That honestly, and that was a tougher fight for him than any of his UFC fights up to this point.
Yes.
And then that dude, I don't know if he's fought in since, truth be told, but this is
he hasn't. He's had a couple canceled fights.
This is a fight that the UFC is saying, because he's fighting King Green. This is a fight where they're saying, we're about to push this guy. We're going to give him a household name, a fun, exciting fighter. If he can win in impressive fashion, we're going to give him a push. That's why he got the main card, opening fight on the main card against a savvy vet, somebody that everybody knows, a guy that looks like he's tough as nails, a guy who is tough as nails, but a guy that can be beat at the same time. And so this is a platform, a launch pad for Ruffy in this fight.
100% is. And by the way, pay attention to Grind City Media this week. I'm still waiting on the final appointment to be made, but I should be speaking with King Green for Grind City Media this week because I love King Green, man. I just the style, and I know you're a fan of his style as well, man. I mean, he's exciting. But you're right. When I saw this matchup, you knew exactly what the UFC was doing here, and that's the fight game, right? I mean, you got the seasoned veterans that have been around,
but he has to go. Ruffy has to go through a guy like him
100%
to get there.
Because he hasn't thus far. You know, you look at the wins he's had thus far. Jamie Malarkey, Hamas Yantop, both really, really tough dudes. Both dudes like to go out and scrap, but not of the pedigree of King Green and the experience level.
Opening main card to in your third fight, and he was supposed to be the opening. Was he the opening fight of the main card at MSG? He either was
he
or
was.
he was.
Oh, he was. Yeah. He
That's
was.
how much confidence the UFC have in this guy.
100%. Yeah, the guy is special. And he's part of that Fighting Nerds team, right? That's having all kinds of success. I mean, the whole squad is out there doing big things. I saw actually Kyle Bahayo stepped in against Brendan Allen this past week at Karate Combat and actually won a grappling match against them. But I mean, they've got this incredible record in the UFC, what they're doing. And they got, people like to put the glasses on and celebrate with them. So this is a good fight. King Green.
Have you seen the line on this?
I have. I imagine Ruffy has got to be a massive favorite.
Minus 590.
Oh, man.
On the comeback of plus 370.
I get it. Look, I'm a King Green homer. All right, listen, I cheer for King Green. I love his fighting style. I love his personality. I love everything about him, man. So I hate to see, because it's not disrespect, but when you see somebody that big of an underdog, you kind of think that's a little disrespectful, but it's not. It's just the reality of the matchup. That's how high everybody is on Mauricio and his capabilities and his skills and what he's going to be here. So this could be a very, very fun fight. King Green, look, he's going to talk to you. He's going to fight with his hands down. He's going to have the shoulder roll, and he's his slick movement on the feet, and he's going to be yapping at you the whole time. It's going to be a fun fight, but this is a huge opportunity for Ruffy. Once again, as you said, man, it's a chance for him to really set forward, and he does. He looks like a future star of the division, man. He really does look like he's going to be 28 years old as well, so just kind of really entering his athletic prime.
Is he in the rankings yet, or no? He's not in the rankings yet, is he?
Not yet. Lightweight's so deep, but he's got to be pretty close. But yeah, it's just on the outside of it.
Yeah, this is the launch pad for him. So, I kind of hit the fights that I wanted to hit. Anything else jumping off the charts at you?
I mean, listen, I do think that Jalen Turner and Ignacio Bahamondes as well is going to be just a stylistically fun clash. They're both exactly 6'3". I mean, they're both incredibly tall fighters for the division. So you talk about 6'3" lightweights and the length that they have, the reach that they have. It's pretty spectacular, and they're both just exciting fighters. So I think that one is going to be absolute barn burner as well. In fact, yeah, just pulled up the significant strikes. Jalen Turner averaging 5.6 strikes landed per minute. Sounds good until you see that Ignacio Bahamondes is averaging 7.17. So, I mean, these are all action lightweights. And again, they got that tall, rangy frame that neither one of them is likely used to facing carbon copies of themselves, right? They're used to being punching down on people and having the range over other people, and that's not going to be the case. So I thought stylistically this was a real fun match that they put together. So I really do think, man, this pay-per-view as a whole, might not be as star-studded as, some other offerings. It might not be stacked top to bottom, but in terms of entertainment value and the matchmaking that's been done here, I think you and I are both very excited about the title fight. But you look at, Gaethje, Fiziev, Turner, Bahamondes, Green, Mauricio Ruffy. I mean, those could all be like fight of the night type fights. And if you get a 5-fight pay-per-view main card where 3 of the fights, you're arguing over which one is the fight of the night, then you had a damn good time on your Saturday night. So
you have Alex Pereira, Justin Gaethje, you have Ruffy, all on a 1-fight card out of 3 out of the 5 fights. And then we add Jalen Turner into the mix then as well, and people are gonna bitch and moan about it.
I mean,
think about when you say that out loud.
People are always going to gripe. But then you look at the prelims, and Curtis Blades and Rizvan Kuniev is on there. Curtis Blades, obviously that perennial contender that's always been just a little bit outside the top. This was a rescheduled fight. Obviously it's tough right now at heavyweight because we're all waiting to get resolution with what's going to happen with John Jones, right? I mean, we got Tom Aspinall waiting and kind of pushing and prodding and saying what's going on, and you got Dana and Hunter Campbell just saying, hey man, John Jones knows what's up. He tells us when he's ready to go. So, I mean, we're all waiting for that to get resolved. So it kind of makes other heavyweight fights a little bit less intriguing because you're just waiting for that to get resolution. But this is a big one. Curtis Blades is a stud in that division, and Kuniev looks to be, kind of a new generation. And what a huge win this would be for him if he could beat Curtis Blades. Joshua Van is back at flyweight. I mean, some great movement at flyweight.
Hold on. Yes, Joshua Van is back at flyweight. He is taking on a guy. I need everybody to remember me saying this here. I ran RO on his Road to the Octagon finale.
Oh, did you really? So you've seen him up close. This dude, I didn't realize that. Yeah, this dude is good.
He is good. You know, right to, I mean, help me out here.
Saruya.
Sure.
Yeah.
This kid is good. 10-0.
It's funny, by the way. His on the media side of things, they have the athletes all say their name. But I guess they had the translator say his name because it's a female voice. So it's kind of funny. She kind of like sings it. So it's kind of funny the way she says it. But I believe it's Saruya.
Now, he's the underdog here, and I'm not saying he's the favorite. I'm just saying, young kid, 10-0, Road to the Octagon winner. Very impressive grappling. He's got it all. Okay? So I think he's somebody who can make a splash in this division. Don't count this fight out as being a barn burner as well.
I agree. Joshua Van just recently cracked the rankings. You know, obviously Joshua Van can strike, man. He's got hands. He's very, very fun to watch fight as well. But Saruya, a lot of people very, very high on him. I think it's only his second UFC fight, so he might be a new name to a lot of people. You know, Road to the Octagon is for those that don't know, it's kind of an Asian talent finding championship, but it's marketed to the local market over there. I don't even know if it aired in most places. I think it was a tape delayed ESPN Plus. Yeah, exactly. So he might be a new name. So I'm glad you identified that one because he looks to be an absolute stud as well. So some great ones, man. Alex Morono's back. I always like Alex Morono. I'm actually supposed to talk to him this week for Grind City Media as well. We'll get both those interviews up this week. Alex Morono, a big underdog as well, but he's just a dude that's been around the game forever, man, and has a great head. He's very educated on the sport itself, and it's just always a good dude, man. He's like, look, I'm not ever going to be a champion, but I love doing this stuff, man. Like there's no place else and I love people that have that. You know what I mean?
Guy who recognizes what he is.
I love that, man. Like, I understand I have limitations, but guess what? I love to do this, and I'm gonna.
He's gonna feel me in the morning.
Damn straight. He's gonna know he was in a fight. And he goes out there and gets it. So, yeah, man. I think this pay-per-view is kind of not being given a lot of fanfare, and I guess I do get it to a point, but I'm just, man, when you really look at these matchups, I think we're gonna get a fun night, man. So I'm really looking forward to it. Glad you get to experience it in person, man. It's cool that you're gonna be here for Fight Week. So that means when we get together next week and talk about everything, we will have that cage side perspective from both of us. We'll be in a little bit different positions around the octagon, but we'll both be there and close, and it'll be fun to be able to chat it up that way. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. T-Mobile, man, always a good atmosphere and a good environment. And it's just a busy week for the UFC again, right? I mean, you got, if you're a combat sports fan, man, you got a lot to look forward to this week, man. You've got on Thursday night, they've got the Fight Pass Invitational, the grappling tournament at the Apex. On Friday night, you got Power Slap over at Fountain Blue, which is gorgeous. I mean, the Fountain Blue, I get people ask me sometimes, like, what's my favorite casino in Las Vegas right now? The two I go to, I like Resorts World a lot, and I like Fountain Blue a lot, but it's just because they're the two newest properties. It is high level elite. It's gorgeous in that facility, man. So that'll be over there. And then, of course, Saturday night, UFC 313. So good week to be a fight fan, a combat sports fan here in Las Vegas.
All right. Well, I'm going to be in town for not just the pay-per-view, but for Power Slap. And I'm telling you, I'm actually more excited.
It's your first time seeing one in person, right?
Yeah, I know what to expect.
Yep.
With a UFC paper. I know what to expect with MMA. I've been in it my better part of my adult life. This is going to be a new experience. I've been studying up on the rules. I've been watching film, but I haven't heard it live. I have not heard it being up close and personal.
It's crazy. And bro, the environment that they put in there is totally different. Like the fan feel and everything. It's just a party in there. Like it really is. Like it's purposely set up that way, right? It's just a party inside the venue. And so the feel of it is completely different. And there is, say what you will about the sporting merits and aspects of Power Slap. I understand you can have those debates all day, every day, fine. But the spectacle of it, just the tension of somebody is that first time you're in person and they're measuring up that hand and they're just about to cock back and slap it out of them. It's funny, man. So it's cool. It's in person. I highly recommend anybody that has a chance to go see one in person to do it, because like my family loves it. My wife, my kid, man, they absolutely love it. It's an absolute party in there. So it'll be a fun time for you for sure. I know you'll have some working assignments to be done there, so you don't get to just soak it all in and have fun. But I think the energy and electricity that's in there, you won't help but be able to soak in a little bit of it.
Yeah, man. I'm like a kid before the night before Christmas. I'm giddy for it, man.
I love it, man. I love that you're getting these assignments out here, man. I know the time and the energy and the commitment that you put in, the studying, the professional. I mean, I know what it takes to be at the highest level. Obviously, I've been fortunate enough to see guys, make it to the highest level, and guys locally here like Mark Smith and Chris Tione, who when I first moved here in 2008, were calling amateur fights and going to gyms and refereeing, sparring sessions just to get reps. And now they're performing at a UFC level. And I know that you've, paved a similar path out there in the Memphis area. So I love to see that you're getting rewarded. Obviously, I've gotten to see you up close at CFFC and do some of our assignments. You always do a fantastic job. So I love it when you've gotten to come out and do contender series and, you're getting some reps out here, man. That's it's cool. And I'm glad to see you're getting those invitations, and glad to see Jeff Mullen looking outside and saying, hey, who else is out there? Who's the best of the best? We're the fight capital of the world. We need the best of the best in here. And, maybe the best of the best don't always just live in Las Vegas. So let's bring some guys in. So I'm excited to see you out here. I didn't know until recently you were going to be out here, but I'm excited that you're getting these opportunities, man.
Boom. So am I, man. I appreciate the kind words. And I'm just looking to improve my craft every day, man. That's what I'm, willing to do what others, I guess, aren't typically, and just really go and sit under the learning tree. Put your ego out the door, knowing you're the new guy, and just soak it all in. That's what I'm willing to do. So
it's the white belt mentality, right? It's the white belt mentality, man. I think people forget about that. Putting your ego aside, right? Sometimes that's hard. Right? Especially if you've been around something for a while, to be like, you know what, man? I'm not going to, there's places I can get better. There's places I can learn more. There's places I can improve. You know what I mean? Even if you're the best in the world at what you do, the best in the world, stay the best in the world, because they keep trying to find things they can do. And obviously in the jiu-jitsu world, it's always addressed as, hey, have that white belt mentality. Even when you got a black belt, you know what I mean? Even when you've made it to the top of the game, still have that white belt mentality. So that's what martial arts is all about. And you're applying it to this as well, man.
Amen, brother. Well, I will see you out in Las Vegas this weekend. UFC 313 from the T-Mobile Arena, live and on pay-per-view. I'm fired up for it. For John Morgan, I'm Eric McMahon. Enjoy the fights.